And after I visited Belgrade for a bit, my hair after just a few days was just falling out in these huge clumps. And I also got these heart palpitations all the time for the rest of the time that we were there after then. And I was getting all of these bruises all over my legs and I looked like a cheetah. It was that bad that I was getting all these bruises. And that's how I got the radiation poisoning. And from Twitter, those Twitter vegans and vegetarians will go to my Instagram, tag me in a lot of animal cruelty videos, and then send me messages like that. And then on Twitter, mostly, I get a lot of messages and comments that say I should go kill myself and lovely stuff like that.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday morning. Today we have Olivia, who's going to be sharing her success story with us. Olivia, how are you doing this morning?
Hi, I'm doing good.
We're good to have you. Olivia, you're up in Dallas, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
No.
No, Okay, where are you at now?
At the moment, I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, okay. That's quite a change. Anyway, okay, awesome. They're both good places. Tell me I guess we'll just get started with your background. I know you do ballet and other stuff, but tell us about growing up and how old are you now, by the way?
I'm 20.
20, so you're still growing up. Tell us about the beginning or where you got to and I know you're doing carnivore now and it's been helping you, but where did you come from?
Yeah, so I grew up pretty much on a paleo diet. So I was always really healthy. And I actually grew up off grid in the middle of nowhere for a good 7-ish years. So I had a pretty nice childhood with all that. And then I began my ballet training when I was about 14, which is pretty late for ballet. And then through my training, that's where I got a lot of health conditions just because of the environment. And then actually at the age of 16, after going keto for a bit, my mom and I found you. And then that's how we initially were exposed to carnivore. And I tried it at first, but since I was so busy with studying and ballet, I didn't really bother to do a lot of research. And we were not eating properly on a carnivore. And so it didn't really work for us at the time. So then I went more animal-based for a while. And then about 1.5 years ago, found carnivore again.
I see. And you'd said you lived off the grid 80 paleo, which a lot of people would say it's a fairly good diet if it's cutting out a lot of the process. Of course, there's paleo junk, just like there's everything else. And so why was there were some health issues, I think. And I'm interested, you said because of the ballet caused health issues. What do you mean by that? I know there's a lot of gals in there, they starve themselves. There's that sort of culture. What was going on that made you unhealthy, do you think?
Yeah, I was living in Uruguay at the time, and that's where I got most of my ballet training. And the environment there, most of the buildings are just completely covered in mold. So I initially got mold poisoning, and that caused a lot of different things. I also got heavy metal poisoning, but the mold caused a lot of problems for me in the beginning when I was around 15, and I got a lot of inflammation, chronic fatigue. So throughout my second year of ballet training, I had to stop all of my classes except for the most basic technique class, just because I had no physical energy to actually do it. And then prior to that, so the year before that, I had the harsh reality hit me that I was very bad at ballet and I had to up my training a lot. So I was living alone 3 hours away from my family in the city. And so I wasn't supervised with my eating. So I would binge at the beginning of the week and then starve myself for the rest of the week. So then there was all of that, and that caused a lot of different problems. But yeah, my health conditions at the beginning were just mold poisoning and heavy metals. And then after that time, I did get a lot more health conditions.
How did you verify that it was actually mold and heavy metal? Is there some sort of diagnostic test that you had, or was it just based on circumstance and symptoms? Or how was that sort of verified?
Yeah, at the beginning of 2019, I had a blood test done, and that's where we found the heavy metals. And then for the mold, and then eventually other things, we did some other forms of testing, like urine tests, as well as some blood tests and some other alternative medicine tests as well.
Okay, interesting. And was this still in Uruguay?
Yeah, Uruguay. And then also we traveled around a lot. So then I was in Croatia and Serbia. And then in Serbia, I got radiation poisoning. And then we had to do some separate things for that.
Okay, that's interesting. Just a comment on Uruguay is obviously it's a meat dominant, particularly beef dominant country. It's one of the most highest consumption of meat in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Them and the Argentinians eat a lot of beef. Did you Did you notice that while you were there? Or maybe you're too young to notice or didn't really see that, or did you see that?
Yeah, meat was a huge thing there, but unfortunately, I think now, as of maybe 2020, all the meat that's produced there, it's really high quality. It's just all exported. So all of that good meat, you can't find really any of it in the country. So it's a lot of Brazilian imported meat. And that's also initially why carnivore didn't really work, just because I am a lot more sensitive. I was at the time. The quality of meat really impacted me and we weren't able to find it there. But meat is a huge thing. You just can't find the good meat there.
Interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, so because you just mentioned you got radiation poisoning in Serbia, and what brought you to Croatia and that part of the world? Serbia, Croatia, all the former Yugoslavian conglomerate. I actually got to go visit Croatia last year for the first time. Very pretty place. I haven't been to Serbia. I was there in Bosnia and Croatia, but what brought you there, and how the hell did you get radiation poisoning?
Yeah, since we were living in Uruguay, we were trying to leave. And finally, in 2020, we got the opportunity to sell our house. We originally wanted to move to Hungary because we have some long distance family relations there, but it was very difficult to get in at the time. So we went to Croatia because I had some ballet opportunities there. So that's why we went to Croatia. And then they don't really extend your visa as a US citizen longer than a year. So I had a ballet opportunity in Serbia. So we went to Serbia. And Serbia 20 years ago was bombed by NATO with depleted uranium. So I'm pretty sure how dangerous that can be. And the government didn't bother to really test it or clear any of it. And I've done some research. And over time, if anything, the particles from that just expand. So we were not in Belgrade. We were in Novi Sad, which is the second largest city. And after I visited Belgrade for a bit, my hair after just a few days was just falling out in these huge clumps. And I also got these heart palpitations all the time for the rest of the time that we were there after then. And I was getting all of these bruises all over my legs and I looked like a cheetah. It was that bad that I was getting all these bruises. And that's how I got the radiation poisoning.
Okay, interesting. And yeah, I was going to say, because I would imagine certain parts of Europe and Eastern Europe, probably ballet is more, I guess, pronounced than it might be here. I don't know, I guess I'm thinking. I always think about ballet and kind of the Russian ballerinas and that type of stuff. And so I know nothing about ballet other than they have messed up feet a lot of times from a surgical standpoint. My daughters did a little bit when they were kids, but okay. So I guess, so what was the extent of your illness? Because you talk about bruising and hair falling out and fatigue. What were if you could just summarize all the things that were wrong with you at the time when you maybe got into carnivore?
Yeah, so all the things that were wrong with me were I had severe inflammation. So after I went carnivore, after about 2 months, I lost over 40 pounds of just inflammation and water weight. So I had a lot of inflammation, which caused a lot of joint pain. I also had gout, anemia. So I first had heavy metal poisoning from iron. And then a year after, because of the mold, caused malabsorption. And I also had some organ damage that caused me to then be anemic. I then had depression. Oh my God, what else? Oh, I ended up getting parasites as well, which didn't help my situation. And that causes huge skin rash, like eczema and some acne thing. And that's about the extent of it that I can think of at the moment off the top of my head. And a lot of the things improved, but I had to do, of course, other things to help.
Yeah, I remember you sharing a picture. You had pretty severe facial acne and things like that. Now you've got just beautiful glowing skin. So it is clearly improved. So I'm curious, because you said initially you attempted to do carnivore, but you didn't do it right. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so I was eating a lot of processed meats. I also didn't address any of the underlying health conditions. So I needed to also address those to help, just because I guess I'm a lot more sensitive compared to, let's say, someone else. So initially, definitely not enough fat at all. And I was 16, so growing up, developing. So not enough fat. A lot of processed meats and a lot of dairy products. And that was about it. Okay.
And then you say not addressing the underlying issues is like still being exposed to the whatever mold and all those types of things that was ongoing, you think, and perhaps that led to that. So processed meats, mostly dairy, and not enough fat. Okay, fair enough. And you said you went back to animal based for a while, which some people it's meat and some people add fruit and other things in there. Fruit, I think it's fruit and dairy and honey and things like that is what some people are promoting. What was your experience with that? And then what made you not choose to stick with that for some instance?
Yeah, so my animal base was more so just like meat with sauces and then dark chocolate and yeah, a lot of dairy products. So that I didn't feel great on it at the time. I wasn't really thinking about how my body felt just because I was so busy with the training. But I do remember just being chronically fatigued because of all the other health conditions, and it wasn't really helping me. It wasn't until I was told by a company that I was overweight that I had that flame under my bottom to just get my at least physical appearance in order. I didn't really think that I knew that I had some forms of health conditions, but I didn't know what they were until we ended up doing more other forms of testing. I found Michaela Peterson, even though I already knew a carnivore, I found her and that kind of pushed me again to go carnivore and then strict carnivore and learning a bit more how I should be approaching the diet.
When you say a company, I'm assuming you mean a ballet company, and they told you,
Yeah.
hey, you're too heavy to be a ballerina. And I met you in Austin, Texas, as I recall, and you're not a big person, you're a small person, particularly compared to me. But so yeah, I guess an extra 40 pounds on you would be very noticeable because you're not very tall. How tall are you? I can't remember.
I'm 5'5".
5'5". That's medium height, so never mind. I guess my perspective is skewed from where I usually, my vantage point. But okay, so now I'm just wondering with all these conditions, when did you start ballet? And then you said 14, which is later, that's right. And all these issues, how hard was it to continue with chronic fatigue and all these inflammation? How hard was it to do ballet then?
Yeah, it was very difficult. And I look back now and I wonder why I kept bothering to pursue it, just because when I had a restart at 17 again with a whole different style and a whole different teacher and doing it more so privately. I would do the class in the morning, and then for probably the rest of the day, I would sit on my bed with my legs up on my back just to relieve some of the edema or leg swelling and just get some circulation, also help with the joint pain. So it wasn't fun, but for some reason I pushed through that. But yeah, it wasn't easy at all.
What does a day in the life of a ballerina look like?
Now I'm taking some time off, but usually it would look like I wake up at 6 a.m., do a bit of stretching and rolling out of my muscles to relax, eat a breakfast, and then I go to ballet class. That's about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending. And then prior to the class, though, at the studio, I'll be stretching and exercising for about an hour and a half. So that's about 3 to 4 hours there. And then I'll do some more exercising and training just on my own for about another hour. And then that's about it.
Yeah, so you're spending a good 4 to 5 hours a day in your craft. And I imagine maybe even at the very highest levels of ballet, maybe it might even be more, I would imagine. And one of the things that, as an orthopedic surgeon, I've mentioned, I think to you even, in fact, that there's an entire chapter in a foot and ankle text about the ballet's foot, the ballet dancer's foot, because obviously you're spending time up on point and it has some potential problems with that. Did that bother you? Did you ever any foot issues with the extra inflammation and stuff like that? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, I had a lot of like bunion pain, so like gout. So anytime that I would just touch the joint where my big toe was, it was extremely painful. And this was back when I was training in Uruguay. So we had a teacher there that was hardcore. So we would have to stand in the shoes for 4 hours. Even though we weren't doing anything, she would let us take them off. So then that kind of made it worse. And then since there's a certain way you have to position your feet, so you're pushing on the bunion even more outwards. So that made it worse. And yeah, with the inflammation leaving or being gone now, my flexibility has improved significantly. My back pain, of course, is gone. And the bunions they're non-existent now. Yeah.
That's good to hear. That's great. Yeah, because a lot of people, I had operated on a lot of bunions at one point when I was doing my surgical training. We did foot and ankle for 6 months, and we would operate on bunions and bunionettes and do all the kind of different things you do with those, but which sometimes involves cutting the bone, breaking the bone, reshifting the bones and stuff like that. What about what of all the issues you had, how has Carnivore impacted the fatigue, the weight, the skin issues, the various things you had? How has it impacted you so far?
Yeah, it's been more than life-changing for my career. Of course, it's been completely changing. I went back because I wasn't able to stay in Croatia. So my teacher was in Croatia. I was in Serbia, and then I went back to train again with him. And yeah, he couldn't really recognize me because of the difference, just physically without the skin issues, also physically a lot thinner and fitter, as well as I was taking some summer intensives in Serbia with some teachers that I never met before. And a couple times they commented that my stamina, which was very impressive because we practice these solos in ballet, which are about 1 to 2 minutes long, but you're exerting so much energy in them that at the end of it, most dancers just collapse off stage because it's so exhausting. And I was able to perform a solo or run it through 2 to 3 times without feeling that tired. So I got some comments on my stamina that has improved significantly, which I've also noticed as well.
That's good to hear. And as far as, I know there's like jumping, and again, I don't know much about ballet, but I know there's some are very impressive athletes. I would clearly consider it an athletic feat. And have you noticed like more ability to do those things, different things that were more difficult?
Yeah, I used to have a lot of, like I mentioned, back pain, but also a lot of hip pain. And after going carnivore, of course, since it removed the inflammation, it's helped with the pain, as well as I've been able to become a lot stronger so I can hold positions a lot longer. Also being able to lift my legs higher, also being a lot more flexible, jumping. Also, my muscle recovery has been amazing. Which has also helped with my flexibility. I'm able to go every single day and stretch the same amount without being in pain or having this sore feeling, which, if anything, doesn't help with my training.
So you had mentioned you did carnivore, quote unquote, wrong, with lots of processed meats, lots of dairy, low fat, and then a period of time animal-based with chocolate and more dairy and stuff like that. What are you doing now that is clearly working for you? What has the difference been? What does a diet look like these days?
Yeah, so now I can tolerate almost any animal products as well as dairy. I just choose not to consume dairy to stay lean because you still have to have a certain body type for ballet. So yeah, I eat twice a day, and I just eat when I'm hungry and I stop when I'm full, and that seems to work.
Were you not doing that before with the other versions? Was it just, were you forcing yourself to eat or something like that, or?
Yeah, kind of forcing myself to eat. I was watching you and a bit of Frank Tufano, which probably wasn't the best. And I would force myself to eat these huge steaks, and I would just feel so full after, and then force myself to eat more later, which, yeah, because I did not research it enough.
Okay. And as far as you mentioned, you weren't consuming enough fat, or were you eating lean dairy? What is going on with the fat? Are you getting more fat in the meat now, or what's the difference now?
The difference now is I will prioritize, depending on what my goals are. Sometimes I'll prioritize protein if I want to have more muscle growth. But back then it was a lot of dairy and then zero fat from the meat, or if I had butter or anything, there was zero of that. So it was just the protein some days. And then other days I would have a lot of carnivore ice cream or something like that. So it was a weird balance of things.
So lean meat and dairy fat, basically, it sounds like, is what I'm hearing there. Okay. And as far as you're in the U.S. now, is it easier here than it was Croatia and Serbia to do carnivore, or what's been your experience?
Yeah, it has been much easier. Also a lot more accessible for traveling, finding different foods to be able to eat while traveling. Sourcing meat there wasn't so difficult. There are a lot of meat productions that have great quality beef, so it wasn't really a problem, but it has been a lot easier here.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's butchers all over Europe and stuff like that, so you can certainly go find them. And because the grocery stores often are a little different, they don't have a lot of meat in there. In some cases, some do. So you're in Salt Lake City now. What brought you there? I'm just out of curiosity why you left Texas.
Yeah, since I'm so sensitive, we moved up to Dallas, and it's a huge city, and I wasn't feeling so well there and ended up getting some other parasites and other things. So we moved up here mainly because Utah, oddly enough, is huge on ballet. So there's a lot of ballet opportunities, and I was offered an opportunity up here as well. So for both of those reasons.
Okay. So you're continuing in the ballet career, because I assume you do ballet until you're, I don't know, 30s, 40. I don't know what the age of ballerinas tends to be, but I suspect it's something like that. So so you said you're taking a break. Are you planning on starting back up on the ballet in the next few months or something, or?
Yeah, so I will be with this company here, and the ballet season typically starts in August. So in August is when I'll officially start. By taking a break, I'm just working at home. So I still do train for a couple hours a day, and I go and take classes sometimes, but it's not quite as intense as like during a season where there'd be rehearsals and other practices and things.
And during the season, is it like a traveling company? Do you go to different places and perform, or how does that work?
This one is not a traveling company. There are some that travel and they like perform in one place and then travel. This one is mainly in Orem area, so Orem Provo area, not Salt Lake City. And sometimes they'll travel around the city and not always perform in their like home theater, more so like that.
Okay. And what does a typical performance look like for you? Is it like you have to dance for an hour, or is there different segments because there's a whole company and there's principals that are doing their solos, and how does that typically work for you?
Yeah, depending, since I'm still young, I'm not going to be promoted to, let's say, a higher level. So I'd be performing a lot as a like background person. So I would be probably performing in every single show, and that would be either 1 hour or 2 hours, depending. Also, if there's too many people, some people may not even perform. If you are a soloist or a principal, then you'd only be dancing. You still are dancing a lot, but it's not quite as much, and there's a bit less rehearsals. So yeah, it depends on your position, but overall, it's a lot of performing.
Okay. And outside of the actual dancing itself, does it benefit you to do like weight training or strength training? Is there, I don't know maybe you get too muscular and it's not considered good, or what's the typical track for becoming a really good ballerina?
Yeah, there's these certain exercises, which is called like a floor bar, because a ballet class consists of the bar and then the center, and then later on you do other things. So there's these exercises that you can do on the floor, which is like strength training, but you target more so just like ballet muscles that you would be using. Recently, I have been trying some cross training, so some more strength training or like body weight exercises, but ballet inspired, because if you do work some other muscles, then it'll show, and then it actually ruins your technique a bit. So it is important to stick with the ballet form of training and not go too much into like weight training or lifting or things like that, just because it's targeting different muscles and it ruins your technique a bit.
How much, because you'd mentioned there's pressure to appear a certain way, how much of the other ballerinas are you seeing issues with eating disorders, anorexic behavior, bulimic type stuff? Is that common in ballet?
Yes, I think just about probably every single ballerina deals with that. I know when I was in my ballet school, there were a lot of older girls who would get there because we started at around 2 p.m. and they wouldn't have eaten anything until then. And then halfway through the training, they would like scarf down some sandwich, and then that would be it. So there's a lot of, under eating or eating and then having it come out and things like that. So yeah, it's probably every single ballerina at some point has some eating disorder.
Interesting. Sad. It's sad to hear that.
Yeah.
But we see that with gymnasts and stuff. We saw Olympic gymnast girls are being intentionally like delaying puberty due to malnutrition, more or less, so they can stay small. So you're a carnivore. There can't be too many carnivore ballerinas. Are there many? Are there anybody else like how many of your friends, because now you're in a new company, but in the past when you started doing carnivore, did anybody notice and say, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I haven't met any. I think I might have met one other carnivore ballet dancer online. Most of them are animal based, which to me is still fine. But yeah, I went to this summer course and I was carnivore. And since it was in a different country, we all ate out together. So they actually, all my classmates then, they didn't really mind. They didn't really care, actually. They were just happy that if I ordered a hamburger, they would get all the extra food and I would just get the burger patty.
Do you find a lot of, because among eating disorders, interesting, if you look into the eating disorder literature, a disproportionate amount tend to be plant-based or vegan for some reason. Is that something among ballerinas much?
Yeah, I've noticed when I was still with my school a couple of years ago, there were a lot of plant-based or vegan-leaning dancers, and now I'm still friends with them, and there's a lot more vegans. And then just by watching videos online and seeing other dancers, there are a lot of, just because they think that it's a way to nourish their body properly, recover and get the energy, there are a lot of plant-based dancers, sadly. I think a lot of them now are.
Okay. Fair enough. Interesting. Yeah. And it goes with the eating disorder thing. And some people will use that as a crutch to continue to justify perhaps an eating disorder for some of them. So as far as you said, some girls wouldn't eat till noon or 2 p.m. rather. What does your eating schedule look like now? What do you eat a couple times a day, or how do you do that?
Yeah. So like this morning, I just ate at, I think it was like 9:30, and then I wait until around 3:30ish for a second larger meal. And then sometimes I'll have a snack in the evening if I'm still hungry, which would just be like leftovers from lunch. But apart from that, that's about it. So one meal around 9:10, and then another one at around 3:30.
Okay. So 2 meals. That's pretty typical for a lot of people in carnivore. I see it's like a 2 meal, and particularly a lot of women have a hard time with 1 meal a day just because it's hard to get enough calories in to sustain you and just that 1 meal. Somebody like me who can inhale 4 or 5 pounds of meat in one sitting, it's okay. But a lot of people don't have that capacity. Do you, so you're 5'5". Do you mind sharing how much do you weigh these days? And what would you say the total volume of food you eat is?
Oh my gosh, I have to do the math. I know that I'm 48 kilos, so that's probably around 110.
Yeah, about 110. Yeah, 96 is 96 plus 9.6. So it's about 106, 107, something like that. So that's pretty small.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I can, depending on how hungry I am, I can eat a lot. We actually, after KetoCon, there was this barbecue at the Sapien Center. I'm not sure if you were there.
Yeah, no, I missed out on that one.
Yeah.
I think I was, for some reason, didn't go to that one. I think it was too tired or something. I can't remember why. I went to somewhere else. I had dinner somewhere else, but yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, so they had a barbecue, and I was able to sneak to the barbecue just because they oversold it. So there was way too many people for the amount of food. But I went back and I got 3 servings of piles of meat. So I can eat a lot and not have a huge impact. It depends on also my environment. So if I'm not in a great environment, sometimes I'll get a bit inflamed. But if I'm feeling my best, I can just eat mounds of meat and not really have it impact me so much.
Yeah. So, and because you're so active, you said you're spending 3, sometimes 4 or 5 hours a day performing, practicing, stretching, doing all those things that may allow you to eat a little more than other people do. Have there been downsides to carnivore initially when you said you were quote unquote doing it wrong, but these days, is there any significant downsides that you see?
Yeah, I lost all my clothing.
Oh yeah, buy new clothes. Yeah, nothing fits anymore. It's all hanging off of you. So
yeah, so I had to make a lot of clothing and fix a lot of clothing. So that was the main downside. But apart from that, not really.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Some people, like I said, have issues, but it's doing well for you. And I know you are online. I think you've got a social media account, if I'm not mistaken. How has that been going? Have you gotten a lot of weird pushback on that because you're out there saying, hey, I'm a ballerina. And as you mentioned, many of them are plant-based. So you're getting a lot of, how can you be a ballerina and eat meat or something like that? Do you get much of that?
On my Instagram, I don't really, despite the fact that I have a lot of ballet dancers that do follow me. However, on Twitter, I've been tagged. And from Twitter, those Twitter vegans and vegetarians will go to my Instagram, tag me in a lot of animal cruelty videos, and then send me messages like that. And then on Twitter, mostly, I get a lot of messages and comments that say I should go kill myself and lovely stuff like that.
Yeah, it's sad. These people have mental issues if they're suggesting that just because and like I said, you're another person who has gone from being not healthy to healthy by eating in a way that helps you. And would they prefer you be inflamed and suffering and in pain? I guess that's perhaps what they prefer. I don't know. It seems crazy. Like I said, what do you have do you have some goals within ballet or any other goals that you want to achieve over the next few years?
Yeah. So for now, I've just always loved performing, and I think I'm dancing just in general, and I don't really care where I'm dancing. So I think that's also what's helped me push through while having all those health conditions. So for now, I'm just looking forward to dancing maybe for the next 5 years. It's not a really long career, and it's not really healthy just because of how lean you have to stay. So that's partly why I don't want to be dancing for too long with a performing company. I have taught in the past, and I really do enjoy that. So that would be a goal, as well as I'm really passionate now about health, of course. So I've been taking some online college courses and reading a lot of different papers for hopefully at some point to do something with that.
Okay. So dance for a few more years, maybe teach, and then maybe get into some sort of health, science, nutrition type of space. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Fair enough with that. And what else? You're obviously we're in this Revero community and I see you here fairly regularly. Since the last couple of months, I've seen you here quite a bit. How has that been? Has that been something that's been beneficial to you? Do you feel?
Yeah, it's nice having a community, and I've received a couple messages from some people that are like, "Oh, I love to see you here," which has been nice. But yeah, it's nice to have the community and the support because before, yeah, it was just myself, and I would get a lot of messages through my social media. So I did have a tiny bit of a community, but it's nice to also have this support as well as just to have a normal conversation with a bunch of different carnivores fairly often is nice.
Yeah, fair enough. And I think that community aspect is incredibly important to that. As someone who's young, I guess was this Generation Z, I guess, do you feel pressured to eat a certain way, think a certain way? Do you see that? We see a lot of people that are like, there's a higher tendency to maybe gravitate toward plant-based diets in your particular generation versus mine or ones that came before me. Do you feel pressured to have to do that?
I used to be, especially when I was still in ballet school, when I first tried carnivore, I was very embarrassed. So I'd hide when I ate. But now, after going through so much, I don't really care. I'll just go and eat my meat. If I'm in a community with a vegan there or something, I don't care just because I know that it's helping me. So at this point, I don't feel any pressure. And if I know that I'm helping myself and it's for my health, then yeah, I don't really have that problem. But I do know that a lot of people do feel very pressured to eat more so plant-based or doing what is popular at the time.
Yeah, and where's that pressure coming from? You think it's media? Is it peer pressure? Where do you see it coming from?
I do use TikTok a lot, or I used to, now not quite as much. And there are a lot of people that are using it, and it's like they'll shame you into thinking that you're doing a bad thing. Therefore, you have to eat plants to either save the environment, which I know is that's not true, and also to save the animals because they're dying. But then my argument would be there's a lot of people dying from eating the plants or if they have certain health conditions. So is an animal more important or is a human's health more important? And that's where they don't really put two and two together. Yeah.
Yeah, or like I said, I think you can't save the planet with sick people. And I think that's an important thing to first of all, we have to have a healthy population if we want to, I don't know, again, whether the planet needs to be saved or not is debatable, but yeah, obviously we want the planet to continue, whether we're impacting it to the degree that some people make out, particularly with the climate is, again, it's controversial, I would say, fair to say. What, as far as, okay, you'd mentioned fat. How do you get your fat in these days?
Yeah, so initially I was eating a lot of butter. More so recently, I've been getting it through just buying chunks of fat, and then I'll either fry those, or if I have fattier meat, then I'll just have that. If it is not enough fat, just because I do have a craving and want for fat, then I will add butter. So mostly those two things.
Okay, and what's your favorite thing to eat at this point?
Oh, my favorite thing to eat. For a whole month, and I did not get bored of it, I ate just burger patties and I fried beef gelatin on it so it gets really crispy and sticky and it's like some form of candy. And then I would add butter to that. So I ate that for probably almost a month.
Yeah, interesting. I haven't heard the fried beef gelatin thing. So where did you get the gelatin from, and how just explain how that works? Because I'm sure somebody's been, well, how the hell do you do that? Because somebody will probably be excited about that. So if you don't mind explaining that.
Yeah, sure. Someone actually sent me a message on Instagram about it randomly. I don't remember who it was. And I was just eating normal burgers, which can be good, but with the gelatin, it's a lot better. So you just take powdered gelatin as if you were to make Jell-O. So it's that form of gelatin, but of course you get just pure beef gelatin. And after the burger is completely cooked, it has to be in enough really hot fat. And then you'll sprinkle a kind of thin layer on top of the burger, and then you flip the burger over so the fat is now on the bottom. And then after about a minute, it'll just really crisp up and absorb the beef tallow fat that's in the pan. And then you just scrape it back over, and it's like a sticky layer on top.
Interesting. Okay. That sounds like fun. I'm sure somebody's going to try that out. And then, here's the other thing I'd ask you about, because with ballet and all the activity, do you have to manage fluid and electrolytes in a particular way? Do you have to take extra salt, or what do you do with that?
Yeah. So when I first started carnivore, I was in Serbia and they don't really have electrolytes there. It's lacking in a lot of things. So there were no electrolytes. I was just supplementing with magnesium. So I was a bit dehydrated and have to drink a lot of water, which probably didn't help since there were no electrolytes in that. Recently, I've been using electrolytes and it's been helping, and I don't take any more magnesium. So I do have to supplement with a fair amount of electrolytes. I was, I think, for about 2 weeks using the LMNT electrolytes, and I was drinking about 3 packets of those a day. So it was a fair amount. But yeah, that's about how much I would take daily.
Okay. And then let's see what else I can ask you about. So what have you noticed? Because you had all these health conditions, right? The skin, the bloating, I guess I should ask you about things that other people consider normal, a little bit of bloating, a little bit of hair, nails. I mean, what has been the impact on you across the board? Have you noticed other things like your hair growing better, your nails growing better, your digestion better? What other things have you noticed?
Yeah, recently, because I don't have straight teeth, because I had braces on, but I had to keep having them come on and off because we were traveling a lot. Recently, I'm very excited about it. I've noticed that my teeth are actually straighter, which is a bit odd. And I'm correlating that with the diet because before that wouldn't happen. Also, just because I'm sleeping better and breathing better, which I noticed as well. So those things, as well as, yeah, just stable energy throughout the day. So I'm able to study all day long. And that's also helped with my training because there's a large mental aspect to the ballet training as well.
Yeah, is there within the ballet community, are there a lot of girls with, I guess that should be fair. I guess there are males that do ballet as well. Do you ever train with them, or are there mixed companies and stuff like that? Or is it typically mostly females? And then do any of them have like mental depression, things like that?
Yeah, a lot of my classmates from the past and then people I've met, they all have a lot of mental health issues just because you're wearing skin tight clothing, and a lot of the companies and studios, they don't allow you to wear skirts or shorts, especially for the girls. So you always see yourself, just your physique, like your silhouette in a mirror. And for the most part, they cheap out on the mirrors. So the mirrors make you look a bit wider, shorter, longer than you are. So you're constantly seeing that for about 4 hours every single day. So that really messes with you. So a lot of people will undereat because of that, as well as, yeah, I've noticed that after an hour of training in ballet, a lot of dancers will have to eat a granola bar and yogurt and all these other things. Sorry about that. It just logged me out of Zoom. I'm not sure why.
Okay, we're back again. So I'm trying to remember what we were chatting about just then. Oh, I was asking, you'd mentioned that there are some gals that have eating disorders, and it's like you said, you're forced to look at your physique all day long in mirrors, and they're flat out telling you, hey, you're too big, you need to lose weight, you need to get skinnier. I wanted to ask you about males within the company. Are there males in the company, or is it a mixed company typically?
Yeah, typically it's a mixed company just because there's a lot of male roles. I don't think a single ballet in existence that doesn't have a male, just because they're based off of like fairy tales or old stories. So you do need the guy. So typically it is mixed. And I do know that there, of course, are also eating disorders and things as well with males. Not quite as high. The percentage isn't quite as high with men, just because it's not quite as demanding for how they look, just because they have to lift the ballerinas. So the ballerinas do have to be a bit thinner. But yeah, typically it's mixed.
Yeah, and what is the percentage? Was it probably like what, 90% women, 10% males, or what is the ratio typically when you go to a ballet company?
Yeah, it's typically bigger companies will be more like maybe 40% men and 60% women, but you get to smaller companies and it's 90% women, 10% men, just because, yeah, not a lot of guys dance.
I see. Because I am, like I said, I've been to a few ballets. I watch them. I think they're cool, but I don't know anything about it. What are some of the things that maybe are difficult to do that most people don't realize how challenging it is? Can you maybe talk about some of that?
Yeah. So the most difficult thing, I think, at least in a lot of people, after studying a bit of ballet technique, I've noticed a lot of people don't do it properly, is just the very, very absolute basic thing, which is the positions as well as just the bar exercises. So just having your feet in a position like this and opening and closing your leg and not bending your knees and being straight, having your shoulders, having your neck long, your arms not drooping. So there's a lot of these little tiny things. And I think that's the most difficult thing. And no one sees that because it's not really performed on stage, but that's like the basis for everything. So people will see all the turns, all the jumps. Those are, of course, very difficult, but the most difficult thing is the foundational basis for then getting to that.
So a lot of posture and just being able to hold the positions that, I guess, until somebody tries it. How hard is it to be, how long did it take you to get up on point? That's standing on your tippy toes. How hard is that?
That it's not quite as painful as a lot of people think it is. It did not take me quite as long just because I was immediately slapped on point shoes because I was older. But it did take a while to get the balance and the feeling comfortable wearing them, because it's like you're wearing two big shoe boxes on your feet. So to make it look appealing, it does take a lot of work, but just wearing them, it's not so bad. But to make it look nice and to feel very comfortable and stable, that takes a long time, probably 4-ish years.
Yeah, and I can imagine some of those positions, like I'm 260 pounds, that would probably be challenging for me to say the least, I would imagine. So there aren't like giant ballerinas, are there? I mean, is there like a typical size that you typically see?
Yeah, actually the most prominent ballet school in the world, which is the Vaganova Ballet School in Russia, they have a weight chart, which has been very controversial. They don't really follow it anymore, but I think it goes by certain heights. For certain heights, you have to be certain weights. And I think it went from being around 40 kilos, so 90 pounds, to probably around my weight, so around 100-ish to 120 pounds, depending on your height. So depending if you're like 5 or 6 feet.
Okay, so there's not like a height, because there's not a lot of women over 6 feet tall. There's a few, but there's not that many. But on the average, you're going to see women between 5 foot and 6 foot for the most part. And you can be any height within that range and still do ballet, I would assume, comfortably, right?
Yeah, it is a lot more challenging when you are bigger. When I spent a full year training privately, I was my largest, and it's a lot more difficult to train when you're bigger, just because you have to be flexible. And to do the positions, you do have to be leaner to be able to reach the positions. So it is possible, but it makes it probably 10 to 50 times harder.
Yeah, fair enough. And there was a question here about your dairy consumption. You'd mentioned are you consuming none at this point, or minimal, or just a little bit of butter? Is that all? Or do you still consume yogurt and milk and cheese and things like that?
Yeah, I don't really consume that much dairy products, as in like cheeses and milks and things like that. On the rare occasion, if I'm out and all there is like a burger and it's already got melted cheese on it, I'll eat it. I don't have a problem with it. It's just not too often, probably twice a month, really.
Okay. And then just because again, who are considered like the top ballet people? Is there like a Michael Jordan of ballet type of thing? Is there this is the ultimate best ever type of ballerina or male version?
Yeah, so there's two, and of course, both of them are Russian. The first one is Svetlana Sakharova, who everyone knows, and she's famous, and I was lucky enough to actually see her perform live. So her, as well as Natalia Osipova, and she's also Russian, of course, and she is probably the most powerful dancer out there just because of her height in jumps is higher than men, and men are supposed to be known for jumping, and she can jump way higher than most men, which is just absolutely impressive. So those are like the Michael Jordans of ballet.
Okay, interesting. I have to admit, I haven't heard of either of them, so
Yeah.
I guess I'll have to up my knowledge game on that. And like I said, how high is she jumping? Is she like 3 feet off the ground or something like that?
I would say up to 8 feet off the ground.
Holy
It's
cow.
very high. She is very impressive with her jumping.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is impressive. Jumping 8 feet in the air. That's pretty amazing. Wow. Okay. Anything else you want to share that either about ballet or your journey or carnivore or anything else? We've got a few minutes left.
I'm not really sure if there's any questions, but I can't really think.
Yeah,
of
I think we've
anything.
got.
Kind of covered. Yeah.
Oh, okay. They said, okay, as far as lucrative, obviously I would imagine like many sports, unless you're like the top 10 in the world, can you make a career of it? Can you be financially wealthy from being ballet if you're not one of the top people?
No.
Okay.
No, you have to do a lot of stuff on the side, whether it's teaching or training, or you just do something completely different, unless you're, top athlete of it or very well known. If you have a large name, either off of social media or whatever it is, yeah, you don't really earn too much.
Yeah, somebody's mentioning Mikhail Baryshnikov, who I have heard of, and he's a little older generation. But and then as far as what was the last thing I was going to ask you about? No, I can't remember now. Anyway, okay, so tell me your social media information. So if people want to go follow you, and do you put ballet on there? Do you show yourself doing some of the stuff?
Yeah, I have a YouTube channel now, and that's mostly about health, but I'm going to start putting some ballet stuff on there. On my Instagram and TikTok, it's a lot of ballet, but I still do show what I'm eating. I also post how to cook something or if I make something cool. Also, a lot of skincare stuff because that has been obviously a big thing for me.
Okay. I remember what I want to ask you. Is ballet as a sport, is it growing in popularity? Is it shrinking? Is it staying the same? What has been the trend over the last 20, 30 years?
It has been growing a bit, especially in more so, I guess, like social media. There's a lot of dancers out there now, or just people who are doing it because they've seen it on social media just for the training aspect to get like the ballet body. They do that. So it has been growing in that way. Maybe not so for a professional career, but for your everyday person to pursue it just as a hobby or to just be in the physical shape of it. It has grown.
Yeah, I can remember seeing some like fitness-based classes around the bar. It was like bar-based fitness or something like that. And is that still a thing, or do people doing, I'm not even sure what they're doing in there, but maybe stretches and activities and getting fit doing that. Is that still going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of places that offer, it's called like bar classes, and you're just doing very simplified ballet exercises, and it's holding onto a bar, hence the bar. But yeah, that's very popular now.
Got it. And isn't there like I think it's like some principal positions you hit? I know there's 4, I don't know. Do you know those? I'm sure you know those. Could you share those?
Yeah, there's 6 positions. So the first one would just be like your feet together like this, and then second position, third position, and then fourth position is crossed over, fifth position, and then sixth position is just your feet parallel. So yeah, the 6 positions.
Okay, maybe I'll practice on that sometime. So your social media, the name of your social media channels, because you left that out. What's the name where people go to find things?
Yeah, my YouTube and my TikTok and my Instagram are all just Carnivore Ballerina. And then I have a Twitter, but that handle was way too long. So my handle on Twitter is my name, Olivia, with an extra A. So yeah, Olivia with an extra A.
Olivia with an X-ray? Okay.
Extra A.
Oh, an extra A. Olivia with 2 A's.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, and there's a Y instead of an I, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, so it's Olyveya.
Okay, very good. Olivia, thank you for sharing your story, and thanks for being part of the community. And I wish you luck with your ballet endeavors as long as you want to do them and whatever else comes on. And I'm sure we'll see you in the meeting. So thanks a bunch. The rest of you guys, thanks everybody. We'll be back tomorrow morning. I think our guest had to reschedule for tomorrow morning, so we'll have an open meeting tomorrow morning. So anyway, thanks everybody. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye now.